Can everybody see Google Earth? Wave their hands. All right, you can see Google Earth. All right, great. All right, here we're going to go first to where I am, right here in the east coast of the United States, Scituate, Massachusetts. And then we're going to go to California, all the way to Mr. Benson, who's going to lead us off, okay? There we are at 200 Kent Street, right by the ocean in East Coast, Massachusetts, USA. And now we're going to telescope out a little bit just to get a little perspective on where we're going today. And now over to Moss Landing, California for Mr. Benson from NOAA, Southwest Marine Fishery Science Center. Right down here, somewhere close to this, is a beautiful spot on Earth where Mr. Benson gets to do his work in the oceans with the turtles. Okay, Mr. Benson, I think what we can do is have you start.
Hello.
Everybody wave their hands if they can hear Mr. Benson.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? I can see you.
Yeah, there's everybody. How about
okay,
Bongoma? Can you see? I think Haiti's coming in. Ken Scoff, you're in?
Yes, I'm in. So.
All right, beautiful. Excellent. All right, Mr. Benson, why don't we start? And Dr. Ornelas, maybe put your camera on so that we can see your students. Right now we're seeing just the ceiling.
Sure. All right. Well, as George mentioned, I'm a marine scientist with NOAA Fisheries. That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And among other things, I work with large sea turtles. So the picture there you see on my icon is myself sitting behind a huge female leatherback turtle that we found in Solomon Islands. So as you can see, these are really large turtles. These are the largest turtles on the earth, one of the largest reptiles on the earth. They weigh over 1,000 pounds. They're almost 5 to 6 feet long. There's a really old animal that goes back to 80 million years ago, back to the time of the dinosaurs. It's one of the oldest surviving animals on the planet. And it migrates from these beaches like in the Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea and Indonesia all the way across the ocean over here to California just to eat jellyfish. It's incredible. One of the longest migrations of any air-breathing aquatic vertebrate. Unfortunately, though, the population of this animal is declining rapidly, and today there's maybe less than just a few thousand of them remaining in the Pacific Ocean. And the reason for this decline is multifaceted, but includes problems on their nesting beaches where folks in the past, at least, have harvested the animals and the eggs regularly. Today, the problems on the beaches include things like lethal sand temperatures that are so hot that the eggs actually cook in the sand. Problems with feral pigs and dogs digging up the nests. These are problems that put pressure on the reproductive output of the beaches. But also, as they swim all the way across the ocean, about 6,000 to 7,000 miles to get here to eat jellyfish, they also encounter fishing vessels that are trying to catch swordfish and tuna that accidentally catch these turtles at the same time, and so that also puts some pressure on the population. And then finally, marine debris is a big problem. So, as I mentioned, these turtles eat jellyfish. And so if they come across marine debris like plastic bags or balloons, they're likely to mistake that for their favorite prey item, eat that, and of course if you eat plastic bags or balloons, it's not going to be a good situation for you. You can cause blockage of the GI tract and potential death. And in some cases, they can even get tangled up in some of the marine debris, like discarded nets or ropes and things like that. So we have quite a bit of work to do to bring back this population, and given its status of distribution across the entire Pacific Ocean, it's going to be everyone's responsibility to play a part in this. all the different peoples and cultures across the Pacific are going to have to pitch in to recover the leatherback turtle in the Pacific Ocean. So that's just a summary of what I'm doing with leatherback turtles. I guess, George, if you have any questions, or kids, you got any questions? I don't know if we'll do that now or later, but I'm happy to help try to answer them.
Okay. Can everybody hear Scott? Everybody wave their arms if you can have heard Scott, his talk. Okay, everybody. Wonderful. Okay, how about Ms. McLaren's class? Did you hear? Mr. Benson, did you hear him? Great. And Mr. Coriolan, did your folks hear Mr. Benson down in Kenskoff? Hello. Yes, hello. Okay, great. Excellent. I think what we're going to do, Scott, why don't you put on your camera and show your beautiful face and to the world.
Okay.
All right. Say hello to Scott. Mr. Benson. All the way in Moss Landing, California. Okay. I think, Mr. Benson, I think what we're going to do is get Mr. McBrearty from African Wildlife Foundation to speak next. And then we'll take the question and answers. Okay?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So it looks like Mr. McBrearty dropped along with Kenskoff, so we're going to have to wait a second before they come back up.
What's your foot?
Hi, Mr. McBrearty from African Wildlife Foundation. Are you there?
I'm here. Are you guys all ready?
We are. I'm going to stop my screen sharing, although actually in a second. Before we go to you, I'm going to take everybody else out by way of Google Earth to where you are, okay? We're leaving Moss Landing, California abruptly. Sorry about that, Scott. And then we're going to head to Nairobi, Kenya, which is pretty far away from you. All right, everybody, can you see that on the screen? Yeah.
Why aren't you hearing me?
Because then a lot of their mics are off.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. Let me come back out again. I think we might have missed some of that from the overlay. There we have it. Half a world away from Mr. Benson is Mr. McBrearty, about to speak about the rhino and the African elephant crisis. Mr. McBrearty, you're on. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning to some of you. Good afternoon to some of you. George, if you could do me a favor and stop your screen sharing, that might help.
Okay, we'll do.
My presentation a bit.
There we go. All right. Now, go ahead, Mr. McBrearty. You're on.
I'm really excited to be here and to talk to all of you, especially now that I know I've got some friends up in Bungoma, just up the road a little bit. Bungoma, if you want to wave to me, let me know you're out there. There you go. All right, good. So my name is Brian McBrearty. I work for the African Wildlife Foundation here in Nairobi, Kenya. And what I'm going to do today is show you some pictures and talk to you a little bit about the poaching crisis and what we're doing at AWF. So you can see my face right now, but what I'm going to try and do is share my screen with you so you don't have to look at me and you can look at some nice pictures while I talk. So let's see how this goes. And George, you will tell me if this is working.
Okay. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay, it's coming through. Takes a little bit, a little delay,
All right.
a little bit of a delay.
There's a little bit of a delay. I will speak slowly. But what we'll do is we'll start talking about some of the work that we're doing at AWF. Obviously, we do lots of things in addition to the poaching crisis. But what we're going to talk about today is a little bit about the animals we protect, and what we do. And so just to give everybody a really, really quick history lesson, there was lots of poaching in the 1980s. And in 1989, 1990, there was some new laws that were introduced, and a lot of the poaching went down. So we had a really good period in the 90s, in the 2000s, where poaching was very, very low. And in the last 10 years or so, poaching has gone back up. And so what we at AWF and many other conservation organizations did was we said, how are we going to combat this? How are we going to tackle the poaching? So we've really got 3 areas that we're working in. And if the photo has caught up with me, the 3 areas are stop the poaching, stop the trafficking, and stop the demand. And what I'll do is I'll go through each of these quickly, and then at the end we can talk about some recent events that have happened. So when we talk about stop the poaching, I want to make sure that everybody understands that poaching is not all killing of animals. Poaching is the illegal killing of animals. And what we're working to do is to stop the illegal killing of specific animals on the African continent. And I'll go through the few animals that we are focused on. You will recognize a lot of them. There should be an elephant on your screen right now. What we decided is to focus on a few big, heavily poached animals. And by extension, the work that we do will begin to protect not only these animals, but all the smaller animals that also get poached in an area. Now, the elephant, as everybody knows, the poaching has gone up for the elephants. Poaching is largely for those 2 white teeth you see on the screen, the big tusks. And those tusks are largely sold. People have killed elephants, they take the tusks, and then they sell the tusks overseas. Elephants are large. The ivory from elephants is largely sold in China and some other Asian countries. And what we estimate right now is that there are about 500,000 elephants left on the African continent, and there are about 30,000 of those elephants are killed, and we know in Tanzania alone in the last few years, Tanzania has lost about 20,000 elephants. Rhinos are also a key species that we work to protect. The number of rhinos today is only 25,000. We estimate about 1,200 are poached every year. These poor guys are poached because of those horns that you see right in the front. And those horns are viewed as delicacies, are viewed as medicinal. They are thought to have medicinal properties. And largely, it's also an Asian demand, an Asian buyer. And really, the key market for rhino horn is in Vietnam. So those are the 2 big species that everybody knows, that everybody has read about in the papers and on TV. Those are the species that are really getting hit with the recent poaching. The other one that is dwindling rapidly, this is a chimpanzee, if it's on your screen. The chimpanzee and its cousins, the great apes, the gorillas, and the bonobos are all being killed, largely because of habitat loss. People are encroaching on their homes, their areas where they live, sometimes for meat. And then quite often the babies, especially the baby chimpanzees, if the parents have been killed for meat, the babies are often captured, sold as pets on the international pet trade. And then the 4th area that AWF is focused on. So we have the elephants, we have the rhinos, we have the apes, which are the gorillas, the chimpanzees, and the bonobos. And then our last bucket is really the predators, the carnivores. And there is no bigger carnivore than the African lion. Today we estimate that there are about 23,000 lions left. As early as a decade ago, that number was up closer to 40,000. It's really hard to estimate how many lions are killed every year. The lions, along with its other carnivores, are not necessarily killed to be sold overseas. Many of the lions are killed because they come in contact with humans. They come in contact with villages. They eat village cattle, the cows, the goats, and the humans, the villagers, retaliate. They want to protect their cattle. They want to protect their children. So often lions get killed because where humans live and where lions live are often intersecting. Along with the lions, we look at the other cats. We've got the cheetahs. The cheetahs are the fastest cat on the continent. They're often trafficked. They're often killed for their skins. And then if the pictures are with me, this gentleman that you see pictured in front of you has a leopard skin. He was caught in Congo by some of the people we train just last week, only seven or 8 days ago. So this happens recently. It happens every day. And he was trapped. He was caught with a leopard skin that he was going to either use or sell, which means obviously that a leopard had been killed for its skin. And then beyond the cats, we have two famous dogs on the continent that are really in trouble. These are the wild dogs. The wild dogs have been, the populations have been decimated. Largely like the lion, they come in contact with humans, they attack cattle, they live in the same areas that humans are living, and they're seen as predators and threats to villagers. We think today that there are less than 10,000 dogs, wild dogs, left on the continent. The number is stabilizing. There's lots of conservation efforts to protect these dogs, but they have been really hit. If you see these dogs in the wild, they are beautiful, beautiful animals, and they run in packs. They're always in groups of 10 to 12, 15, and they're just gorgeous animals. And finally, if you don't know what this animal is, on the screen should be a reddish brown, it looks like a fox. This is actually the Ethiopian wolf. There's only 500 left in the world, and a couple of spots in the highlands of Ethiopia. Like the wild dog, like the lions, these guys come into contact with humans, with human populations. Humans are threatened by the wolves. These guys are smaller, so they take more things like sheep and goats, chickens, smaller animals. They cannot tackle a cow, but they are seen as threats. And it's the common theme that humans and wildlife are beginning to live in the same areas, and wildlife is often on the losing end of the battle. So what are we doing? What are we doing to stop the poaching? We've got a number of key species in key areas across the continent. And if the map is on the screen, you'll see the red areas are really where there's key rhino populations. We've got the brown areas or elephants, etc. And you can see that we go from West Africa to East Africa, all the way down to South Africa. And we're looking to protect specific species of these animals. And what do? In stopping the poaching, our efforts largely focus on park management. We work with rangers, we work with scouts, we work with guards to make sure that animals are protected, their habitats are protected, where they live is sufficiently guarded and protected so that tourists and humans can come in and see the animals, look at the beauty of the parks, enjoy the wildlife, but they're not killed, they're not hunted, they're not illegally poached. These rangers are military people. They have guns, they're trained with arms, they are fighting poachers every day, and they put their lives on the line to protect the animals. We have rangers that have been shot, we have rangers that have been killed. Poaching is a violent crime, and we are working with a lot of these parks authorities and rangers to make sure they have the equipment they need to fight the poachers. We have helped purchase a helicopter for some guys in South Africa. If the helicopter is on your screen, you'll see that some of the faces are shaded because we want to protect we want to protect who they are. We don't want their faces to be shown, but they have guns, they have ammunition. This is a serious business. And finally, we're using technology. The poachers have technology, so we're combating technology with technology. This group on your screen is using a GPS. We have cyber trackers, which is a GPS-based system that we can track not only animals, but we can track poachers, we can track poaching camps, we track signs of poaching, meaning snares, traps, footprints, all of the things in a park that suggest that somebody was here with bad intents, with a bad purpose. And all of this data and research and information and intelligence is what we use when we talk about stopping the trafficking. So we talked about the animals we're protecting. We've talked about the rangers and what we're doing to help protect the animals. We've talked about the information and the tracking and gathering intelligence and gathering data on the poachers. When you talk about stopping the trafficking, what does that mean? Is everybody still there?
Can people turn on their microphones, please, to see if you're on board?
Hello?
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 Is everybody there?
Okay, so can everybody wave to me if you can see the presentation? All right, good.
Okay.
So we're still going.
No,
Good.
the image has frozen when the military are standing up.
I thought one of the questions, didn't he just ask the question, what does it mean?
No, he's still going.
All right, we've lost Dr. Ellis. I'm going to add him back in.
Hello, George.
Yes.
I think that images are frozen. Where the militaries are standing in front of three others speaking, but nothing else. I've been saying things, we heard everything, but the image is frozen.
Were you not seeing and hearing Brian?
No. It stopped where he was talking about the military group in Africa. So that's it. The other things that he said, we couldn't see it on the slide.
Okay.
Show.
Mr. McBrearty, are you there?
I am here, George.
Yeah. So I guess some of it got chopped after you were talking about the military aspects. Did everybody hear up to that point?
No, George. We lost it at the lion. Right after the lion, everything froze.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to happen. As we know, there's technical issues here. But it looks like we have a lot of the schools.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, just quickly, if you could instead of the slides, Brian, you could just explain.
Okay, so one of our key partners in what we do to protect these animals is working with the rangers and the guards and other forces that are protecting these national parks and protecting these wildlife areas. These guys are trained military, they're like a trained military force. They have ammunitions, they have weapons, they have equipment. A lot of it has been provided by us and other conservation organizations where governments are struggling to provide the resources. We help to finance a helicopter so that we can do aerial surveys and aerial rescues. And what the helicopter allows us to do is that if there is a sign of a poacher, there is a rapid response. We can get that helicopter up and those rangers can get out to where that poacher is very, very quickly. And finally, these poachers have goggles, they have weapons, they have resources. So we need to fight the poachers with technology as well. And what we're doing is we're working with rangers and we're working with scouts. to provide GPS trackers, what we call cyber trackers that help track animals, track evidence of humans, where they are, track snares, traps, other sign area, footprints, old campfires, and really get a lot of information on where poachers are coming from, where they're going. When poachers are caught, what do they have? What are they after? And all of this provides intelligence. It provides security information for us to properly protect wildlife areas. So the second pillar, the second area of what we do is trying to stop the trafficking. So what do we mean by trafficking? What happens is that animals are killed in lots of countries in Africa. When they're killed, certainly ivory, rhino horn, to some degree skins of cats, they are sold overseas. They're sold elsewhere. So when we talk about trafficking, we're talking about moving animal parts across the continents, across the globe. It's putting the animal parts on a plane or a boat and moving them illegally from a place where they are acquired to a place where they can be sold. And if you can see the screen, we're showing a map of Africa, and we see lots of red lines. These are flights. These are flight patterns. So we know that the key trafficking cities in Africa is where I am right now in Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, which is in Tanzania, Addis Ababa, which is in Ethiopia, and Kinshasa,
Johnny,
which is in Congo.
Johnny, you get knocked out again? Oh, okay. But you can hear him?
No.
Okay. Yeah, we'll send you the artifacts for sure. Okay. Are the other schools in?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay. Are you seeing? You're hearing? Yeah, great. Okay, we'll circle back to everybody in a minute for the questions. But go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So what I'm trying to show right on the picture is this is a shop in China, and what you see on the screen is a very large elephant tusk, ivory, that's been carved. And these are the types of things that are sold on the streets in China and other countries in Asia. And this is where a lot of the ivory tusks are going. And so we want to prevent the movement of these tusks, rhino horn, to these countries. And one of our biggest successes has been dogs. We have a whole group of dogs that we have trained with African handlers to sniff out ivory, rhino, other animal products in a lot of these big cities, in the airports, in the seaports, in the borders between countries, anywhere where there's a checkpoint. These dogs, we're trying to get these dogs out there to start sniffing for animal products. And what's really interesting about dog training, if you know anything about it, the relationship between the dog and the handler, the human, is key. And so we have worked very hard with a bunch of humans, a bunch of handlers and their dogs to make sure that the partnership and the trust between dog and handler is second to none. And these dogs will go around. I'm going to try and show a video that I hope will work, but it's a quick video. What these dogs do is they go around cars, they go around luggage, they go around shipping containers, and they smell for ivory, they smell for rhino horn, they smell for animal products. And when they find something, they sit. They just sit, and the handler knows that somewhere in there is something worth investigating. And as a reward for that finding, as a reward for sitting and finding something suspicious, they get a toy. They get to play. So all of this is a game for dogs, but it's a very, very serious weapon that we use to track animal products. We put these dogs in airports. They sniff all of the luggage that goes through the major airports in East Africa, including the airport here in Nairobi. We put them down at the ports so they can see through shipping containers in big port cities, the big containers that go on the boats that go out to other countries from Mombasa, from Dar es Salaam, and so on. Right now, we've got dogs in areas in Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Congo. And we're trying to get more dogs in more cities that we know are key transit points for wildlife products. And what I like about the dogs is that we talk about ivory, we talk about rhino horn, but these dogs can sniff anything you train them to sniff. And on the screen right now, if it's showing, it's basically a plastic tub that contains 10 to 20 tortoises that were found alive in luggage by one of the dogs. And so they not only find rhino horn, they find elephant ivory, but they find all sorts of animal products, all of which are illegally trapped. That allows us to bring these people to justice. Finally, what you see on the screen are, you may see a bunch of people in really funny wigs. These wigs are still used in East Africa, believe it or not. These are judges in courts, and these judges need to be trained on how to handle wildlife crimes. So when the dogs find people that are illegally trafficking, illegally transporting wildlife products, we can now find them. We can now help the police arrest them. Now we need to work with the judges and the judicial system, the court system, to make sure that the prosecutions are also, the judges are fully aware of how to prosecute. So we talked about stopping the killing. We've talked about stopping the movement, the trafficking. The third piece of this is people who are actually buying these products on the street. And so what we're doing is we're working with a partner in China, in Vietnam, and other countries of Asia. And we've launched a really large awareness campaign all across Southeast Asia. We're using some local Asian stars. If the picture has caught up to my words, there is a large ivory-free banner from an airport in China. And I'm not sure if you can see the people, but the people in the banner, one on the left is Yao Ming, as any of you guys are basketball fans, I think you know Yao Ming. He's a superstar in China. The middle person is Prince William from England, who does a lot of conservation work and is well known as one of the royal family. And then the man on the far right, some of you may recognize as David Beckham. All three of these and many others are very much with us in supporting the awareness of what ivory and rhino horn is in Asia. I'm also going to try and play another video. I hope everybody can see
it. Brian, if I could just halt you for a second. I'm not sure. I know one of my schools is not seeing the screen. They're hearing you, but they're not seeing your videos or your some of your images. How many out there?
We're not seeing it, George.
Yes, 316 is not seeing the video.
Okay, how about anybody else? Is anybody else seeing the videos? Okay.
Yeah, like Bungoma, we're just hearing, but we're not seeing the pictures.
So Brian, I think we're going to have to go with your lovely words. You know, that's just the nature of the technology. When you have so much bandwidth being eaten up by audio and video, sometimes the other stuff doesn't come through. Brian, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I guess if you could just maybe stop your screen sharing and then continue with your audio or your presentation with your video too.
Okay.
Is everybody hearing Brian? Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Okay. Great.
We can hear you at PS316.
Okay. Wonderful.
All right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, basically the point about stopping the demand in Asia, is that we've got a public campaign with stars, with local celebrities in Asia, and the big message is many Asians do not understand that when you purchase an ivory tusk, an elephant has died. Many Asians think that you can cut an elephant tusk, you can trim an elephant tusk, and the elephant is okay. They also don't understand that if you're buying rhino horn, a rhino has died. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this understanding that if you buy these products on the street, an animal has already died for your product. And that is a big mindset that we're trying to communicate with lots of Asian communities.
Brian, if you would do me, excuse me for a second, if you wouldn't mind turning off your screen sharing. I don't know if you've done that yet, so the other schools can see one another at least.
There you go.
Okay, beautiful. Everybody wave. Say hello to everybody else. Hello. Hey, everybody. Thank you for your patience on the video stuff. But at least we're hearing Mr. McBrearty today, who's giving us some incredible information about his organization, as did Mr. Benson about what they do with turtles. So soon we're going to turn it over to the students, but let Mr. McBrearty finish his presentation, and then we'll go to MS 354 for the first set of questions, okay?
So I am almost done. The last thing I wanted to talk about, I know some of you have been watching Kenya and the recent ivory burn that we had here in Nairobi. It was a big event. There's some debate around the ivory burn, but it was a very successful event. Part of the challenge with poaching is that when you catch poachers, you catch them with wildlife products. You catch them with ivory, you catch them with rhino horn. And when a country like Kenya does capture poachers, what do they do with the products that they capture the poachers with? And over time, these products, the amount of ivory, the amount of rhino horn, skins, other products has built up and built up and built up. Where do you store it? Where do you keep it? And what do you do with it? So Kenya decided to make a stand against poaching, to make a stand against what's going on in wildlife, and they decided to make a big show of what they have, and they set it on fire a couple of weeks ago, and it gained a lot of world attention about the challenges that elephants have, the challenges that rhinos have, the challenges that countries like Kenya have, and what Kenya means to do about it. And I think I'll stop there and let everybody start to ask some questions. And George, I think you're going to moderate that.
I sure am. And I will thank you very much, both Mr. Benson and Mr. McBrearty, for their great presentations. I hope everybody heard most of it. If they weren't able to see all the pictures are beautiful, and we'll share them with you through the open website after the event. We're going to start collecting from everybody's site the videos, the images of your students, and your materials that you want to share with everybody else. And so Mr. McBrearty and Mr. Benson, and if you have any other materials you'd like to send our way, like the slide presentation, by all means we will post that for everybody so they can see and correlate what you said. So without further ado, I will go to MS 354, who probably has been waiting patiently for asking their questions. If you could start. Everybody else, maybe turn off your microphones for the second so we can hear them ask their questions. So go ahead.
Okay, this is for Mr. Benson. How are sea turtles able to return to the nest?
If you could speak a little more loudly, that would be great.
How are sea turtles able to return to the same beach to nest?
How are sea turtle is able to return to the same beach nest? That's what he's asking.
Mr. Benson, you turn on your mic, maybe.
Yes, I heard part of the question. Could you, George, could you repeat it for me if you heard the whole thing?
Yeah, I did. It is, how do the turtles know what beach to return to from where they were born?
That's a very good question. Some of it is due to like magnetic homing. For instance, you may know that salmon, as fishes, also reach to the same streams that they were hatched in. So turtles and leatherbacks in particular can do that also. They don't necessarily always go back to exactly the same beach, but they might go to the same region or area where that beach is. But some of them actually, I've seen them lay eggs just within a few steps of where they laid eggs 10 days previously. So some of that is a bit of a mystery. We know that at least like leatherback turtles also have a pineal gland that's located just underneath the skull. And it's the area of the skull that's the thinnest, and so this gland is actually very sensitive to light. So it's kind of like a little clock that they've got in their head, and it measures day length. So as you know, if we were to move here from Monterey, California, or Moss Landing over to where some of you guys are, the day lengths are going to be different. We're getting into summer here, so our day lengths are getting longer, and maybe where you are, the amount of daylight is different than we have here. So they use a combination of magnetic homing and measurement of light to help them navigate and help them know where they are. And I also just let you know, as a wrap-up to this, that they also show fidelity to foraging areas. So just like you mentioned that they will go back to the same beaches where they were hatched, we find that they come back to the same places to eat jellyfish. And I've actually caught the same animal here off in Monterey Bay over several years apart. So caught one, for instance, in 2010, and caught the same individual in 2013. So that's also pretty incredible.
Wow, excellent, Mr. Benson. That's a great answer, and that science was able to reveal those homing devices that are biologically wired into these animals for millions of years. And still operating and functioning well, except for us humans getting in the way from time to time, I guess. Okay. Let's see. The next group would be after that. I think we're going to go to Kenscoff. Are you all there down in Kenscoff to ask your questions? Turn on your microphone so we can hear your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, we're here.
If you wouldn't mind speaking up just a little more loudly, clearly, so we could hear the question, and tell us where the question is directed.
Today, what should be the animals that need more protection?
Have you heard the question?
Not quite clearly. Is this a question?
I think that the question should be for Mr. Brian. And what she is asking, her name is Jennifer, she is asking what, according to all the researches and all the things that are being done in Africa, what should be the species that should be more protected, that need more protection now in Africa?
Skype cut out a little bit. To repeat that question again, what species need more protection in Africa?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. That's the question.
So rhinos and elephants are clearly the top two species that need more protection on the continent. They are the ones that command the most value for their products on the street. And they are the ones that also do the greatest amount of good in a given landscape. They prune the trees, they distribute seeds, they keep the health of a landscape very much intact. But there's some smaller species that are also heavily trafficked that often miss the radar screen. And one thing that everybody can research after this call is an animal called the pangolin. The pangolin is actually the most trafficked species out of the African continent, and their numbers are declining and declining rapidly. They are sought after for their scales. The scales are used, I believe, in food, but don't quote me on that. So the pangolin is another species that is smaller. It's a nocturnal species, so people don't often see it during the day. They come out at night. It's less well known. It's not as big as an elephant, but it is very, very much sought after by poachers. And then the other thing I will say, probably more in line with what Scott does, is much of the tortoise and turtle population on the continent, both marine and terrestrial and land turtles and tortoises, are very much sought after for their eggs, for their shells, and again, they're smaller, they're less visible, less known, but they are heavily, heavily trafficked across borders.
Okay, wonderful answer. Thank you. I guess we're going to go to your neighbor down the road a piece, to Bungoma, Mr. McBrady. Mr. Bonaventure, Mr. Masika, do you have a student who would like to ask a question of one of the experts?
Yeah, they are.
I am Hallelujah, and my question is direct to Brian Mabita. Is there any possibility of African government to allow its citizens with big farms to have sanctuaries as improving security to our wildlife?
Okay, I got most of that. Can I ask you to repeat that one more time?
Why are you competing with a smart ball?
Is there any possibility of African government and wildlife of big farms to have sanctuary so as to improve security to our wildlife?
Well, that's the hope. I think there is opportunity and hope that governments will do more to protect wildlife. As you know, here in Kenya, President Kenyatta was the leader of the ivory burn recently. And I think Kenyatta and his cabinet are really putting pressure on Kenyans to protect their wildlife. The tourism and international visitors that come to Kenya to see the wildlife, they spend money in local communities, they spend money in hotels. That's good for the government, that's good for the country as a whole. And animals help protect water sources, they help protect trees. These are all reasons why we need to help secure the habitats for animals. And I think governments are becoming more aware of what animals need and how animals need to be protected. There's a security element to the poaching that also promotes instability in a country. And so organizations such as AWF are working with President Kenyatta, other presidents, other governments, and we can only hope that there is opportunity to increase the security and increase the protection. I believe there is.
Okay, wonderful question and wonderful answer. Now I think we're going to roll, just so everybody gets a shot at some questions today, to our school in Brooklyn, PS 316. Mr. Diaz and Ms. Johnson, if one of your students has a question.
They still have another question to Brian.
Oh, okay, hold on, just a second. From Bungoma, one more question. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
So the new leaders, man.
Go ahead, Bungoma.
How is it important?
Say that one more time.
Kenyan economy if rhinos, horns, and elephant ivories are banned? How is it important to Kenyan economy if rhinos, horns, and
all right. That's a good question. How is it important?
Ivories are banned.
How is it ivory, elephant ivories, and rhino horns are banned?
Brian, would you repeat the question for everybody else? Brian? Brian?
Yeah.
Go ahead and repeat the question. So and then your answer, please.
So if I heard the question from Bungoma correctly, they were talking about Kenya's ivory burn, and they wanted to know how does the ivory burn help Kenya's economy if they're burning all the ivory and the rhino horn?
Hello.
Ms. Johnson, if you wouldn't mind turning off your microphone for a second. Just thank you.
Sorry.
No problem.
To Bungoma, I think that's a very good question, and I think there's a lot of debate. The value of the ivory was very high, and if it was sold on the market, it could have generated a lot of money for Kenya, and it could have been used to help fund, to help support communities, rangers, scouts, and other security. The large question is, would that money have actually gotten to communities, to rangers, to scouts, or would it have disappeared within the government? And the other thing I think that President Kenyatta wanted to say was that there is no value to ivory if it's not attached to an elephant. President Kenyatta and the Kenyans, KWS, and the other people associated with it were trying to make the statement that if the elephant ivory is not attached to a living animal, it has no value. And I think that was the statement they were making to the world. And the ivory horn, the ivory tusk could have been sold for money, but I think if you look long term, the protection of future animals would be worth more than the ivory that they burn today. And I think that's the statement that needs to be made, and I think that was what President Kenyatta was going after.
Excellent question and answer again, and I think really, coming down to the line here with the near extinction of these wonderful species, that we have to think longer term in the value of what these animals will be worth over time. Again, we turn back to their rights as animals and what a value it is to the humans. And when you're short-term thinking, you're going to wipe out a species because there's a demand for it. But if you think longer-term for tourism and other activities and the value these animals offer the ecosystems of our planet, then we're thinking long range and intelligently, I think, about the value here. It's hard not to pass up a big money win and a victory, but I think I certainly agree with you, and I think if we can pass on that logic to others, maybe we'll have less killing. But next question, I think we'll go, great questions, Bungoma. We're going to go to 316 for their questions. Sorry about the delay. Go ahead and ask your questions.
Hello, George. Bungoma?
Yes.
Okay, there is one of my students who wanted to ask about turtles before maybe you ask in other people.
Well, let's do 316 quick question, and then we'll circle back to you, Mr. Masika.
Okay, fine.
Go ahead, 316. You got to put on your microphone. I'm afraid your microphone's off. On your Skype, I believe. Mike, we're not hearing you still, so maybe put on the mic. Turn on the microphone, please.
George, you don't have a number to call her?
They can hear me, I believe. Mr. Diaz is trying to take care of the situation.
Right. Okay, got it. Right.
Yep, on the bottom of the Skype, Mr. Diaz. Yeah. We're not hearing the question. Can you hear us, Mr. Diaz? Wave your arms if you can.
Are they going full screen? They should go full screen. Then they could do it easier.
Yeah. Mr. Diaz, go full screen if you would. Your microphone is still off, I'm afraid.
Unless they turn the mic off from the mic.
Yeah, maybe the mic is off itself too. Okay, try that now. No, we're still not hearing you.
They should also try. They should also try to see on the settings if it is not the microphone of the computer that is being used.
Right, exactly. Is the computer volume up on the computer as well as the Skype microphone as well as the handheld microphone?
Well, the thing is, they just had it on a minute ago when you asked her to mute it. So,
yeah, I know.
See what I'm saying?
Ms. Johnson muted it with the remote, so maybe you have to use the remote, Mr. Diaz. Just a few seconds and give him a chance. Maybe try that handheld.
Hello, can you hear us, George?
Now we can. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hello, bonjour, Habiri. My name is Trinity from PS316, and my question is, what does the elephant use its tusks for? Can it survive without its tusks? If so, would it be better to remove the tusks instead of killing the elephant to get its tusks?
Great question. Mr. McBrearty, I guess that's directed at you.
Habari, how are you?
Say hello.
Good. So, that is an excellent question. The elephant cannot survive without its tusks. The elephant's tusks are actually very big teeth, and the elephant uses the teeth to do a couple of things. They use it to protect the herds. There's fighting that goes on with elephants, and they use their tusks as protection. But more importantly, their tusks are used for eating. They use their tusks to strip the bark off of trees, to dig up plants. They use their tusks every day to survive. And so with elephants, when you take away a tusk, you take away their ability to survive. Rhinos, on the other hand, can live without their horns. And the young lady that asked me the question, there are some programs on the continent that have removed rhino horns from the rhinos to help protect them. There's been some success with that, and we're looking at what we can do in that area. So rhinos and elephants are different in that respect. Rhinos can survive, elephants cannot.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think we're going to, just due to the time constraint, I want to get,
we have one more question.
Okay. Go ahead. If you don't mind going past 10 o'clock, everybody, East Coast time, then I think we can roll with a few questions. Go ahead, 316.
Hello, bonjour, Habib. My name is Mohammed from PS316. My question is, if poachers keep killing elephants at this present rate, what year will elephants be extinct?
Great math question. Go ahead, Brian.
Habari Mohammed, how are you? That is an excellent question, and unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you. It's a lot of guesswork, and it's a lot of speculation. Certainly, at this rate, by 2050, the elephants could be gone. Some suggest it's much, much sooner than that. It could be as early as 2025, 2030, if we don't do anything about it.
So in your lifetime, we could see no more elephants on the African continent at all, in the wild.
And Mohammed, just one more thing. There are a couple areas that elephants have long lived, and they are extinct in certain areas. So there are certain places on the continent that have always had elephants, and they no longer do. So in very local areas, elephants are already extinct. And across the continent, we need to do something quick.
Okay, if I could just interject here now, as far as the progression, I want to make sure that Dr. Ranellis's class has a chance. So hold on to your question, 316, and Mr. Masika, and we'll circle right back to you. And in Kenskoff, we want to get some questions from you too as well. So maybe one or two more from everybody. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Ranellis, Dr. Ranellis, if you would have one of your students ask a question.
Sure. All right. Well, we have two questions, but time constraint, we'll just get them going fast. Okay. So here's one of my students with her question.
Go ahead.
How come fish hurt other living things and when turtles eat jellyfish?
Did you guys, this is from Mr. Benson. You want to repeat it again? 1 second. Yeah, cool.
How come jellyfish hurt other living things and when turtles eat it, they don't get hurt?
Thank you, but I didn't quite get all your question. Could you repeat it one more time?
How come jellyfish hurt other living things and when turtles eat jellyfish, turtles don't get hurt?
Oh, that's okay. So why don't the turtles that are eating jellyfish get stung by the jellyfish? Is that pretty much the question? That's another great question. I really couldn't answer that question. That's one thing you should also know is that we don't have all the answers, and there's going to be lots of questions for you to answer in the future. So that's one great thing about science is that it always keeps moving forward, trying to answer questions. Now, although I don't know why they don't get stung, one thing we have learned by looking at some videos is that it looks like a salt gland that extracts salt near the eyes might be helping the turtles not get stung in the eye. So we've seen them swimming around in the water, and this salt gland, essentially, if you can see my eye, it kind of like would cover the eye a little bit while it's swimming around and eating jellies. And so it looks like that might actually provide some protection. But otherwise, I don't know. I also thought, well, don't they get their tongues stung and things like that when they're consuming these jellies? But I don't know the answer, and I think that's going to be one for you to answer in the future.
Thank you very much. We have one more real quick, and then we'll allow others to proceed. This question is from Mr. McCurdy, based on Africa. So we have one more student. Go ahead, Alexander.
Will rhinos be still alive in 2020?
Will rhinos still be alive in 2020? That's a good question as well. We hope so. Everything that we're doing is trying to make sure that they stay alive. Like I said, there are about 25,000 rhinos alive today. And we're running at about 1,000 to 1,200 rhinos being killed a year. So I think by 2025, we should still be okay. But one thing that we need to do is we need to make sure not that you just still are alive in 2025, but that they're healthy, they're growing, their numbers are increasing, and that they can not only remain alive, but expand and grow. There are some species of rhino that are already extinct. There are lots of different subspecies within the rhino family, and there are a couple that are already extinct. So we're hoping to keep the ones that are remaining alive to 2025 and beyond.
Excellent, excellent. Now let's circle back because we have Bungoma on live here, and it's always tough to get a signal to the remote region of Kenskoff and Bungoma. So we'll give them each one question, and then we're going to go to MS 354 again because they only got one question in. Go ahead, Bungoma.
I have a question, and my question goes straight to Benson. How do Hawksbill turtles and Endangered ants stay in water?
I didn't get all the question. Could you repeat it for me, please?
Pangolin, go ahead and ask your question again, please.
George, if you heard the question, could you repeat it to me?
I actually didn't, so I'll have to wait to hear again.
How do Hawksbill turtles and Endangered ants stay in water?
Okay, she's asking how is it that Hawksbill turtle is endangered and it stays in water? That's his question. That's her question.
How is it that the Hawksbill turtle is endangered, and what about it in water?
It stays in water. It stays in water.
It stays in water?
Yeah, how it stays in water all the time.
Okay. Yeah, well, the Hawksbill turtle, some populations of Hawksbills are endangered. Some of the reasons are similar to the Leatherback Turtle. They get caught in fisheries, but also, as Brian was talking about with some of the other animals, it has a very beautiful shell, and people kill it to create all kinds of things, combs, guitar picks, things like that. All the sea turtles are exactly that, sea turtles. They spend very little time on the land, only to be hatched when they're just born, essentially. And the females will go back to beaches to lay eggs, but the male turtles will never go back to the beach. They live in the water all the time. And so, yeah, even the female sea turtles are spending only maybe 2% of their lives ever on the beach. These are aquatic animals and spend all their time in the water.
And they're able to breathe by coming to the surface, correct?
Yes, all the sea turtles are air breathers, just like you guys, and just like myself. They have to come up to the surface to breathe. So although they are able to dive, sometimes even like the Leatherback Turtle can dive to over 1,000 meters depth, very deep. They still have to come up to breathe, otherwise they would die. But nevertheless, despite that, they spend their entire life in the water. They're very, very similar to whales and dolphins, other animals that are air breathers but spend their entire life in the water.
Great answer, great question. How about Ken Scoff? Do we have any more questions from Haiti?
Yes, sure.
What about panthers, tigers, or hyenas? Are they also treated? And how can we as students involve in protecting actively turtles and all those endangered species?
I think the question was, how can we students contribute to protecting the wildlife of sea turtles? And did I get that right down in Haiti? Did I repeat that?
Yeah, what she asked is that she heard about all the other animals, but didn't hear about tigers, panthers, or hyenas. And she was asking if they are not also species that are students, and how can they as students be more actively in protecting
No.
including turtles
No, it is.
Okay, I guess let's ask Brian on that one, Mr. McBrearty and Scott, if we could try to answer that question. There are other animals being protected beyond the lion and the elephant, and then what students might be able to do.
All right, so the animals that were asked about were the tigers, hyenas, and what else? Panthers. Say that one more time, louder. Panthers. Panthers. Okay. So for the tigers and the panthers, what I know is that both of those are endangered as well. Tigers are in Asia, so there are no tigers on the African continent. So I'm not really an expert in what conservation organizations are doing in Asia with tigers, but I do know, like the lions, like the cheetahs, like the leopards in Africa, Asian tigers, Bengal tigers, and other tigers are severely under threat. Like the tiger, the panther really isn't specifically here on the continent. I think the panthers are mostly in North and South America, less so than the tigers, but the little I know about panthers is that they are also under threat as well. They interact with humans, they make life difficult for humans and villagers, and so there's lots of threats against the panthers. Hyenas, on the other hand, hyenas are doing relatively well. Hyenas are sneaky little characters, and they come in, if they take things from humans, they come at night, they sneak in, they take something, and they run away. Largely, hyenas stay within parks, within conservancies, and outside of human populations. They're a little bit more abundant, and they are less prized for either their skins or their hides or anything. So while we are aware of the hyenas, we are watching the hyenas. If we are protecting the elephants, rhinos, lions in some of these key areas, we are by extension also protecting that area for all the animals that are within it, including the hyena. Right now, the hyena isn't a key species that's under threat as far as we know.
Well, you know, and that brings up the point about the whole ecosystem that we're kind of circling around, is how the food web works in the oceans and on the land, and in a particular environment where we have those creatures that are all interconnected to one another, whether they're predators, whether the plants are being wiped out by deforestation. And so when we start to break one piece of the system, it's sort of a domino effect sometimes. And I think we have to consider the whole ecosystem as much as we consider the animals. And I know with NOAA, and I know with AWF, with Mr. McBurdy's group, we consider that. A lot of the conservation groups understand that these animals have to exist in an environment that's connected, that is not broken up into pieces, so they can migrate and they can do all the things they do for a normal existence. And it's very hard when we have so many people competing for the same land or the same waters for fish that the animals get accidentally trapped in, or on purpose for the reasons we mentioned. But anyway, I think one more question. I know that
I would just also mention, that's a great point, George. And then, this affects all of us too. It's not just the animals. So as some of you might already be aware, that there's a big problem with garbage and plastic getting into the ocean. And as a consequence, some of the fish that you might be eating today, tomorrow, or in the future could have plastic in it. And of course, if you start eating plastic, that's not going to be a very good thing. So we are indeed all connected.
Although it looks like Mr. Benson just got disconnected. Hello, everybody. Can Mr. Benson, are you there? Did we lose everybody? Hey, everybody, we're back. We had a last-minute drop with that word connection. I guess it was a bad omen. Is everybody there?
Okay. Can you hear me, George?
Yeah, I sure can. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Welcome back, Mr. Benson. I don't know why the call just dropped suddenly, but everybody's dialing back in. I think we're going to have to wrap it up soon. I know everybody has to get into their day, but let's try to get one more question from MS354 and maybe 316. Dr. Ranellis' class has to go, and I'm not sure if Haiti is back in. Okay, how about Ms. McLaren, are you in?
Yes.
Okay, do you have one more question for any of our experts?
They answered most of the questions, but we have one.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tayo.
Maybe turn on the camera if you can.
Our camera is on.
Okay, we're just not seeing you yet. But go ahead. We can hear you, so ask the question, please. Go ahead.
Turtles ever lay eggs underwater?
Would you mind repeating that question, please?
Do sea turtles ever lay eggs underwater?
Oh. Mr. Benson, are you there?
Yeah, I think it was do the turtles ever lay eggs in the water?
Yes.
Well, you know what? Sometimes I've seen some turtles drop a few eggs on the beach near the water, you know, like just at the tide edge. But generally, no, they don't do that. I mean, it wouldn't work out if they drop the eggs in the water. They would never hatch. The eggs need to be in the sand and incubate in the sand for about 60 to 70 days. They actually incubate in the sand and before they hatch. And another interesting thing about that, the temperature of the sand will determine whether that egg that hatches will be a male or a female. So higher temperatures favor females, lower temperatures males. Of course, if the temperatures get too high, you just have a fried egg in the sand. But no, they won't. They won't lay eggs in the water because they won't hatch, and of course, if that was the case, there wouldn't be any turtles anymore.
Okay, great question. I think we're going to have to wind it down soon. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I'd go through the list of all the principals and superintendents in District 10 and District 17 and everybody that's contributed to this wonderful event with your great questions and great presentations in the last 2 days. We want to thank our experts from NOAA, Mr. Benson and Mr. McBrearty from the African Wildlife Foundation. Wonderful presentations and thoughtful answers to the questions, and all the great questions from the students. I do want to say if you could give everybody a link to upload photos, your presentations, other questions that weren't answered, please send our way at O.P.E.N. And we're going to give you the links to the website. We're going to make a summary video of this and that everybody can use as they wish. We'll share that video when it's done.